Have you ever wondered what you can do to reduce the plastic waste from products you use in your everyday life? Well, then you will really enjoy today's conversation with Lars Jansen from SWOP. He will share with us how finding plastic in the mountains triggered him to start a shop providing plastic-free alternatives.
What kind of sucks is whenever you are in nature, we found ourselves on like 6,000-foot mountains and we found plastic, like there were plastic packages lying around.
He will share with us why you have to take into account the whole supply chain if you want to find truly sustainable products.
A product from Europe or North America that is more expensive, but then we have transparent production environment, we have transparent supplier that we can choose. So just like that critical thinking about is actually the whole process from you order something to you in the end get your product sustainable.
And he will share with us how the educational resources help you make better decisions for a life with less plastic waste.
A good way to start is with really our articles about zero waste bathroom, zero waste kitchen. We also have a guide on room by room. All of our guides are not exclusively based on our online shop. So it's just like an educational resource. Some of the products in that guide you can find on our shop, some of them you can't.
Hello and welcome to the Impactful Ninja Show. I'm your host, Dennis Kamprad, and today I'm joined by Lars Jansen from Shop Without Plastic. Lars, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. Happy having you as well. Now, before we get into your story and everything that led into, well, basically starting Shop Without Plastic and what you're doing there, give us a brief overview. What is Shop Without Plastic? What are you doing there?
Yeah, so I started Shop Without Plastic, or SWOP, together with my wife, and we basically just wanted to play a small role in fighting plastic pollution. Mm-hmm. And SWOP has two meanings to it, so it's kind of a word play. One meaning, as you already mentioned, is Shop Without Plastic, so it's just like an acronym. So that means we offer plastic-free essentials for daily life, mainly for the bathroom and kitchen, because that's where most plastic waste accumulates. But the second meaning of SWOP is just the word swap out stuff. And it almost goes back to like a motto we kind of adapted when we tried to live a little more sustainably and reduce the plastic in our lives, because we just got overwhelmed and just didn't know where to start, because literally everywhere in our lives there was plastic, from brushing your teeth to doing the dishes to doing laundry. Literally everywhere we just got surrounded with plastic, and we just got to a point where we said, come on, screw it, we just have to do it swap by swap, or like step by step. And then we started to look at our waste and just swap by swap, exchange plastic products with more sustainable alternatives. And that's how the name kind of found itself, doing stuff swap by swap, and then Shop Without Plastic. So one part of us is the online shop, but we wanted to make sure we also offer resources, so guides that share our experience, how we went at it, and how we found our swap by swap. So hopefully we just help our users and customers to find what's right for them, and swapping out a couple of plastic items without really the need to be perfect and be zero waste and just live out of like one glass jar for your whole year, because we think as long as you're doing something, that's awesome.
Right, so it's basically a twofold approach. On the one hand side, if someone listening and wants to change their plastic utensil from the kitchen, from the bathroom, from other places, to swap them out either at the end of their life or when it comes close to it, they could go basically to your Shop Without Plastic SWOP, and have a look, okay, which plastic-free replacements are available. But on the other hand side, the second part is also the education part of it. So basically, if I'm not sure where to start, or if I want to learn more about your journey, I could also just have a look at the articles and the content that you posted there to basically get some inspiration and some starting points.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a bunch of guides. So for example, zero waste kitchen, zero waste bathroom. We also got like more educational articles about plastic pollution in general. So for example, right now we got a series of articles we want to post that are about how do XYZ contribute to pollution. So the first one was, how do plastic bottles contribute to pollution, where we look beyond the obvious, like throwing a bottle away, and just, kind of try to educate about, hey, plastic usage isn't just about like throwing something away, but it's actually using crude oil. It's got a pretty bad CO2 impact. There are so many good alternatives out there. And just try and educate yourself, try and find the right swap for you. And then it actually can be quite easy. So that's awesome. That's the whole goal.
We're already taking away kind of some part of your later story and your journey. Let's take one step back already, at the moment. Sure. And Let's have a look at your background. What did you do? What's your story? What did you do before starting with SWOP or Shop Without Plastic?
Both my wife and I, we still got corporate jobs, and we've also been doing that for many years. So I myself, I'm in consulting. So I consult my clients about like generically process optimization. Got a little bit of exposure also to like sustainability, but also focused a lot on like analytics and using data analytics to optimize business processes and to reduce the waste in business processes, so to say. So a little bit of like exposure to sustainability also there. My wife is in e-commerce, so she's a IT program manager in e-commerce, which also came in kind of handy. But what really made us found SWOP was we've always been outdoorsy people, I'd say. So we've always loved hiking, camping, and just try to spend all the time we have in nature. And what kind of sucks is whenever you are in nature, we found ourselves on like 6,000 foot mountains, and we found plastic. Like there were plastic packages lying around. So for quite some time, we just tried to, for example, take a bag with us when we hike and just grab whatever we come across. Also started to organize like small cleanups. But then we got to a point where we just said, hey, actually, like cleaning up things is good, but we're not really solving anything. We also have to look at our own consumption and the amount of waste we produce every day, because like we pick up one plastic bottle and 1,000 more get produced in the same second. I think the idea about doing something about plastic waste has been there for probably like 5-6 years.
Oh, wow.
But not really specific. So that's how we kind of try to find our way in doing something.
You get quite some strong background, which would be interesting to get into as well for the starting point.
Sure.
But then also how it really started in your minds was we're just annoyed by all the plastic pollution, even if you're just climbing in the mountains, like super high altitude. There's always plastic. And the first step was to help and clean up the plastic locally, but then you figured out maybe it needs more like a systemic change. And one of the ways you're thinking about, or we're going about it, was to basically create plastic-free alternatives, if I captured it correctly. Nice. And the background that you mentioned already is like two super interesting things when kind of thinking about starting like a e-commerce shop. One, the e-commerce background from your wife. And the second part is also you have some, from the consulting, some sustainability and some process optimization background. How would you say has that helped you like in the decision of starting an e-commerce store?
I think my background mainly came in when it came to two things. One, I just love like digging through stuff and kind of solving problems. That's like my nerdy kind of side from the analytics part. But then the kind of process side of things, I think helped in being super critical about, is it actually sustainable what we're doing? Because when we, for example, did the supplier research, we found many suppliers that were all across the world. So we had to decide, okay, are we taking, for example, a product from Europe or North America that is more expensive, but then we have, for example, transparent production environment. We have transparent supplier that we can choose. So just like that critical thinking about, is actually the whole process from you order something to you in the end get your product sustainable? And I think my wife's background, she's a project program manager in e-commerce. So she just loves managing stuff. And as we started SWOP on the side, and it is still a hobby, we need to be really careful about like when we spend our time and what we spend our times on, because most of the work is happening either on the weekend or in the early mornings or in the evenings, when you do one or the other hour. So just like staying focused, staying organized on what really happens. I think that's the main kind of pieces where our backgrounds came in.
Nice. You mentioned some really, really interesting points already with what we're doing, or basically when we're doing research into any kind of materials or into any kind of processes. One thing that we always use is the life cycle assessment. And that's basically what you also mentioned when you're looking into your suppliers. It's not just like, okay, how does the finished product look like, and maybe the materials is good, but looking into the whole supply chain, but then also the implication, okay, what happens when it's shipped out? Is maybe the shipping distance just way too long between where it's shipped and where it's sold? That sounds, super interesting.
Exactly.
When it comes to the concrete first step, so you mentioned you had the idea about doing something like SWOP for already like 5-6 years before you started. You mentioned your background and then the idea to make it more concrete. How did that happen for you? And what was the concrete first step? How did you get SWOP basically from idea to something, that we can all see now?
Actually, one big change in our lives played a very important role because originally we were from Germany. So all of that, like the first idea and the first kind of we want to do something, that all started in Germany. And then beginning of last year, we moved to Canada with our jobs. So we were already like super out of our comfort zone with like a big move across the Atlantic. But then also settling in Canada and North America, we found that in Germany it was already super hard to find some of the products. We found it even harder in North America. And we thought, hey, there have to be other people like us who also want to be more sustainable. If we don't do it now, we won't ever do it. And let's just start it right now. Let's look into how it could specifically look like. And really kind of offer that platform or offer that shop and resources for the North American market to help our users and customers to figure out where can we actually get these alternatives. And then the specific first steps were back in Germany, we already had found our products we trust and we used ourselves. Basically had to do it all over again in North America and find suppliers that deliver to North America, test products, like kind of find our product portfolio that we want to launch, that we are also convinced of. That's mainly what Ava did, my wife, and I mainly focused on how do I actually launch an online shop, because I didn't have a clue about it. So I did a bunch of online courses, kind of sketched it all out on a piece of paper and with mock-ups. And then we reached a point where we just said, come on, now we launch it and we look from here and just iterate and ask people and get feedback and just get better and better. And that's when 8-9 months ago, we launched the website.
Sounds like from a classical change management perspective, sounds like a typical story where you come from one environment, you have see everything that's working, you have your routines, you have everything that's happening there, you go into a different environment and suddenly you see oh, why are these things not here? Or why is that so different? And then with your background, Ollie, of wanting to do something about the plastic waste was the perfect starting point, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned also 2 things as the concrete starting point. One is looking into suppliers. And the second thing is, basically getting a website out so that people could also get the products that you're getting from your suppliers. What were the next steps? Walk me along the journey, for the next 8-9 months until we basically now, when we're speaking. What were your next steps to make SWOP grow more, to get the awareness out, and maybe what were also some of the challenges along the way?
So we started off with the idea of being kind of a social media brand and kind of utilizing Instagram and growing our followership there, which also was kind of successful in the beginning. So we launched a couple of Instagram ads that also got some products sold, but quite quickly we kind of realized that one, it's not really sustainable in the sense that it's not really long term, because if you don't pay Instagram ads, you don't really get any customers. We still have Instagram, but with a different goal in mind, really just to connect to users, customers, people that think the same as us. Also, obviously, to promote our content and to just get into the discussion with customers and users. And that was one of the biggest challenges, I think, and one of the biggest changes, because we realized when you launch an online shop and you don't have an audience, you're not really getting any traffic. So the first 3-4 months, we just basically got paid traffic to our site just from Instagram and Facebook. And we quite quickly realized that, again, this can't be sustainable. We really need to think about how do we set it up in the long run. And that's when we really shifted the focus to a little bit more research-based articles, focusing really 90% on the blog to optimize our website, to get Google traffic, but also to enhance the quality of both our online shop and our site to really give users what they are searching for. So quite honestly, the first version of the online shop, I don't think I would have bought there. It was more of a trial and error. But we've come a long way since then. And how we did that is just from the beginning, we asked everybody. We basically talked to what they thought, and we just gathered feedback, iterated, and kind of got to a stage where now we make a small profit, which is far from making us rich or something. Like last month was the first month where we basically broke even and covered our costs.
Nice.
And from now onwards, we're really looking into how do we set it up for the long run.
Basically just getting something out there, like some minimal viable shop, and then iterating with all the feedback. And now congrats on having like a turning point and becoming profitable. Sounds like for the first time. And let's see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Thanks.
So basically, let's just say I want to replace some of the products that I'm using with some more plastic-free alternatives, what would be my best way to go ahead? Would I just go into the shop and have a look at like what all the stuff, like all the products that you have? Or would you have any resources on your blog that would walk me through the big picture?
I think a good way to start is with really our articles about zero waste bathroom, zero waste kitchen. We also have like a guide on room by room. All of our guides are not exclusively based on our online shop. So it's just like an educational resource. Some of the products in that guide you can find on our shop. Some of them you can't. So for example, we just made a decision that it's not worth it offering drinking bottles and coffee mugs, which are one of the most important swaps to me. But yeah, just looking into shipping, looking into as you said, like the whole life cycle, we just thought it's not really a sustainable thing to order online. We also weren't convinced of the quality. So just look into one of our guides and think about what would be a good place to start and what would be a good thing that you can actually incorporate in your daily lives.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds like I could basically, we put the link to the website in the video and the show notes as well. But it sounds like basically, depending on which room I want to start with as a consumer, I could have a look into your guide, see for the room, like some of the biggest swaps I can make. If you happen to have the products, I would be able to find them there. Otherwise, you would still recommend the good swaps people can make and would just link out to other products, I would assume.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing we have, and that's, I think, also a good thing to start if you already know, hey, you really want to go big and change or do multiple swaps at the same time. We also have starter kits. So I think that's also a good place to start, where you have like a dishwashing starter kit, for example, with a wood brush and a solid dishwashing block, or you have a bathroom starter kit with like shampoo and body wash and like a soap dish. So yeah, just like room by room, and actually start thinking about your own life. Where do you have the most exposure to plastic? And then just think about what would be the easiest thing for you to do without really being annoyed or feeling the change.
Basically to make it fit into your daily life without feeling like you have to compromise on anything.
Exactly.
Nice. No, so that's awesome, especially with kind of getting started and seeing it's not the craziest thing. Life goes on. And also the products do work just in the same way, but you tremendously reduce in plastic waste.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, if you're looking into the future, what are your plans if you had to think like, let's say year 2 or even more years ahead? Where do you see SWOP and what are some of the exciting things that you've planned for us?
As I already mentioned, we kind of set up the whole thing as a hobby because we wanted to get started and we were excited. So I think one of the first priorities we need to think about is really setting it up as kind of a business rather than a hobby. And really finding sustainable like revenue model going forward, where we can slowly scale our revenue and our profits. So things like, for example, renegotiating supply contracts with our orders and maybe a little more negotiation leverage just to reduce our costs. But then I think in the long run, we have many ideas. One idea is obviously to go worldwide, to go global. Now we've kind of focused on the North American market. We found our suppliers there. Let's try to find ways to ship globally and still stay sustainably. So I think next step would be UK and then Europe, maybe Germany, where we still know which products are good. But then we also have ideas about, for example, having something like a subscription-based model where it gets even more convenient, because in the past we found ourselves that if you order something online, a lot of the products we actually offer are like daily essentials. And some of the things you don't really plan for. So for example, your dishwashing soap, it's just empty and you buy a new one, or toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, we thought, actually, let's make it even more convenient for our customers. They don't even have to worry about buying a new product, but get it right to their door every month, for example. And then last but not least, one of the very early ideas we had, and that's probably a little further down the road, because I think it's not that easy technically, but we'd love to have some kind of membership system where you can actually see how much plastic you saved by swapping out stuff. Because there are calculations or like estimations you can do if you, for example, buy our dishwashing block that on average saves you 4 bottles of plastic. So it would be really awesome to have like some kind of portal for our customers to log into and see actually how much plastic they already saved, because it's just a nice way to showing that you really are making an impact.
Awesome. Now, before we go into the next part of basically you sharing a little more of the personal changes that you made and some of the tips for our viewers as well, is there anything we forgot about speaking about SWOP or that I forgot asking you?
Just maybe to re-emphasize that I think it's important not to be perfect. When we kind of got into researching and trying to reduce waste, we found that some of the resources we found were a little, from our perspective, a little too perfectionist. So that's when we started that whole thing about taking it swap by swap, and just as long as you do something, that's awesome.
Nice. It's also a perfect transition to the next and final part. When you reflect on your work with SWOP and also everything that was leading up to it, how would you say has your personal life changed based on all your research and everything that you've done?
Researching for the shop and obviously testing products helped us to reduce our plastic even more, because we found products we didn't even know of before. At the same time, I'd say it kind of sounds a little stupid, but it kind of made us happier and more conscious about everything in our lives. Like, we kind of found ourselves making more conscious decisions about things we buy, things we do, and just like life in general, because we went grocery shopping, for example. We just saw something and threw it in the basket. And now we find ourselves asking, do we actually want it? Like, would that actually make us happier? Or is it something else that would make us happier? And that also led to us like decluttering stuff from our basement or storage, just like being more conscious in general, I'd say. And it's also really, really awesome to just do it. Like, after speaking about it and thinking about how could we actually make a small impact, it's really awesome to see that people actually buy our products. Like, I remember our first order, like, funny enough, we were on a hike and I got my notification on my phone and we ended up like jumping the whole hike because we were just so happy that people actually like what we do, and we actually make a small impact, be it so small, but that's just like a great feeling to finally do what you've talked about for like years.
Yeah, it's always like, the longer you talk about things, or at least from my personal feeling, the longer I talk about things, the longer I imagine things, the bigger it kind of seems like getting it started. But then when getting something new started, it's like, wow, it's actually not that big, not that crazy. And then really kind of like seeing where it goes is sometimes, just amazing to see.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice. Now for the final question. If you had to share one tip with our audience on how they, basically make a bigger positive impact in their daily lives, would that one tip be?
I think it would be what I just mentioned about making conscious decisions, because many plastic products and a lot of waste actually gets generated because of convenience and kind of not consciously. So just like, best example is if you go to the coffee shop and get a coffee, do you actually want that coffee? Or is it just like a regular coffee that actually doesn't really taste any better than the coffee at home or in the office? And that way you can kind of adapt a lifestyle that helps you to really make those conscious swaps every day. In the end, save you money, make you happier, and at the same time also help you to like make a small environmental impact. So I think that would be my final word. Again, always think about, you don't have to be perfect, but try and be conscious about the things you do.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Lars. Thanks for everything you're doing with SWOP, Shop Without Plastic, and all the continued success.
Thanks so much for having me. That was fun.
My pleasure.
And quick.
Yes. And to everyone else, thanks so much for joining in as well, and stay impactful.